All right, guys, welcome to a new video here. So having another sort of discussion, and this time we're talking to, for the, once again, couple of you who aren't already aware of them, we're talking to JRuler and Sacred Beats from jruler.net's YouTube page, and it's going to be sort of a random conversation, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, we do kind of random stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, now that we've sort of dropped the script from our life, essentially, we just sort of roll with whatever the fuck happens. So,
yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so Oscar, since he's not here, I'll be his sort of intermediate. I don't know what the word is for that. But,
intermediary? Did he give you some questions for us, I hope?
He gave me two questions, but they're very vague questions that can branch into quite a bit of different things.
Oh, awesome. Good. So if there's shit, we can't launch off on him when he's not here.
Yeah, he won't be.
He's like, well, don't shoot the messenger. These are from.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you have a piece of shit too, it's just like, oh well, these were Oscar questions.
Yeah,
so
if you have a question that ends up blowing up in your face, just blame Oscar for it. Like.
No, that's what I don't know if you watched all of like the interview with like Stephanie and stuff like that, but when I got to the end there, I was like, hey, so I have a couple questions here. These are from Oscar, and I made sure to preface with that. I was like, I even skipped some of his questions because I was like, I feel kind of weird about asking some of these. I don't remember what they were, but
I think that's,
yeah, I always
the
make
mark.
sure.
Sorry to interrupt. That's the mark, I think, of a good friendship, a good like working relationship, is when you can throw each other under the bus. Like, you know, we do that all the time, and you guys just roll with it. You just take the responsibility for something like that's.
Yeah, it's pretty much something you have to do eventually.
Right.
Oh yeah, no. Well, it's like we were just at our locals yesterday, and we had our very first meeting with a fan who happened to be there, which was cool. But he was cool, but. I was playing with Oscar, and whenever Oscar would do stuff, I got to tell him like, this is literally what I have to deal with all the time. Each time Oscar, like, you realize how much stuff we're editing out of every time we do a gameplay video because of Oscar here. And how long have you guys been doing the podcast now?
We started in the Ruler and the Beats podcast, which hopefully your listeners have at least heard of and may either love or hate. We've been
or
doing
generalized based on the first 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, if you base your opinion on the first 5 minutes, you're probably going to get a bad taste for it, which is fine.
Just like the answer to this question.
Right. We've been doing it since February of this year, 2017, so it hasn't been that long.
Right. I mean, our bonus episode that we just put on Patreon makes 34 episodes.
34 episodes.
So we've done about one a week.
Right.
That's not bad.
So since February.
That's not bad, because you guys got it down pretty good. I know you're changing up the formula now, but it was one of those things where Oscar was listening to you guys. I forget, I would hear off and on because he and I work together, and so he would just put on the speakers and listen to it, so I would hear bits and pieces. And I was finally like, I finally checked out. I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot, because I tell Oscar this, but as far as like in general stuff, I tend to not watch that much stuff from other Force Wheel YouTubers, just because, as I found out with some other things, like I try not to copy other stuff. Like if I watch too much stuff, I'll absorb it subconsciously. And
exactly. That's exactly. I find the same thing too. Is if even unwittingly you end up, like you said, absorbing ideas that you like or think are good, and you can do that by chance too, even if you don't watch other people's stuff. Like there's only so many ideas out there, and it'll end up happening by chance. But I think that if you abstain from at least most of it, you end up coming up with more original stuff.
Yeah, and Oscar watches like a lot of it, so whenever I'll come up with an idea, like I forget what it was, something to do with like coming up with deck profiles and then gameplay with those deck profiles. And I was like, this is the coolest idea ever, Oscar. And he's like, yeah, it might have been DMO73 or something. He's like, someone did that already or does that already. I was like, well, shoot, I was really excited about that. So he moderates.
It's the whole Simpsons did it syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up listening to you guys because we had done 2 podcasts at some point, and then we stopped for a while because we were trying to do it where we had like 5 people on it, and it was just hard coordinating it, so we stopped for a while. So I didn't listen to your guys' thing because I was like, I don't want to be influenced. But then I thought about it, and I was like, I'm actually listening to like 7 podcasts a week, so I'm already pretty deep into this, so I can't imagine that would make any difference. So I started listening to you guys, and I really enjoy the podcast, and so I haven't listened to this week's Patreon one, but I tend to keep up with them.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks. I mean,
thank you.
but kind of like how you mentioned, that's the inevitable problem of getting kind of stuck in the podcast hole. And for me, like, other content is not so much of a problem because I draw a lot of inspiration, especially from other podcasts, on mostly how to do the engineering side of it. Like, how do they not make their voices and transitions sound like shit? And how do they, essentially the interplay of characters amongst each other. But when it comes to Force of Will related content, I think I went through and did a lot of analysis, especially when it came to things like Deep Woods podcast and the other content that people produce, in order to kind of find a foil or a ground upon which to work and make things better. Because you run into the problem, like you mentioned, where, oh, I have this brilliant idea, and somebody already tried it and either succeeded or failed, so I'm inevitably going to look like a copy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I try to do something like that.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Sacred Beats. That's something that we talked about, and we talked about a lot on our show, especially on our Patreon content. Shameless self-promotion there, but you know, you bring up like the having a foil built into the show. Early on with the podcast, we decided that we didn't want to do like, hey, here's what's going on in Force of Will, and we're just going to tell you what the latest news is, which I know you guys do on your channel, and it is it is an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That because I don't have all the time to sit there and search all this stuff, so I watch TCG Scrubs, and I get the lowdown on it. And
but if everybody does it, it gets
exactly. So it's like, if you're doing that, that's awesome. We wanted to have a built-in, because that's just using our natural relationship as a foundation. Because so like, your listeners now, or the people listening to this, probably, hopefully, see some difference between the way we actually are now and the way that we are on the show, because we play trumped up versions of ourselves purposefully on the show to create two characters who actually hate each other, but love the same game. And once you have that foiling process where we're each other's worst enemy in a way, that creates some kind of drama. That's
well, that essentially is what it naturally is, because I'm getting picked on a lot.
Yeah,
and I mean, and I get
Right.
picked on more in real life than on the fucking show. That's the thing. It's like I get backed into a corner all the time.
right.
And so, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, trumped up characters. I mean, that's essentially how it really is.
Well, right. But I mean, we ham it up. It's
Right.
not, obviously neither one of us is actually running for president, much less with Abdul Al-Razed as their vice president.
It's possible.
As a real person.
I would still. I mean, Mickey Mouse gets all those votes.
Right. Right. So
And-
that's
yeah.
that's what we wanted to do from the get-go.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, that's inherent in podcasts. Like I said, I listen to all of them, and they talk about that on the Rooster Teeth podcast, and they're like on how they drum it up a bit, like it's their personalities, but it's obviously dialed up a bunch, or or characters being played, or in the case of, like I had mentioned to you, I doubt that. Well, it's probably controversial. It doesn't matter. But like I listened to the Bible Reloaded, and that's obviously very, very dialed up, crazy stuff that they say. But it's hilarious because it's not actual what they think on certain topics that they talk about during their different things, and so. And that's one of the things, like listening. I was playing one of your podcasts, the first one where you're like, all right, we don't give a shit anymore, with that YouTube comment, and I was like, oh, I haven't shown my wife your guys' podcast yet, so I'll play this real quick, and I was playing on speakers, and she was like, well,
The show doesn't go off well with wives. We found.
yeah, she was
wife
like,
hates
I don't like this. They're being really mean to these people. I was like, well, yeah, that's
the point.
that's the bit. It's
Yeah,
funny. That's,
right.
that's what they do. And they're like,
Especially
yeah, I
feel
don't.
like every content creator does that too, where they're scrolling through their own comments. They're like, man, fuck this asshole. Like this piece of shit doesn't know anything of what I'm talking about, but to actually physically lash out at them on a bit that I think we appropriately titled.
Right.
I think that's the kind of thing that it sort of becomes a social commentary on performing and doing content as a whole, is what it sort of has become, and sort of the process under which you do that.
Yeah, I remember, like, well, I mean, obviously we still get. I don't know if you guys saw, but we did a gameplay of Fox versus the Prochaotic Charlotte deck from Masters. People did not like that one, but so we got a lot of comments. But we were trying, like, when I comment back to people, I'm like, oh yeah, they'll be like, yeah, this is complete crap, and I'm like, oh, thanks for the feedback. We'll take that into account in future episode or gameplay.
I mean,
I'm
you'll
trying
never
to be
encounter worse human beings than in the comment section of YouTube.
Yeah,
If they're even people.
when we first started TCG Scrubs, we had our first couple videos, and we realized, both with the name being Scrubs and when we first started the channel, we're a lot worse. People were not fans of the videos, but like, we were trying to drum it up. Like, I had a whole thing where going in between games, I had a little poop emoji that came in, and it was like the, old Batman thing of like, doodle-doo-doo-doo. And I would point out, I spent way too much time editing gameplay videos to try and like point out every time people like made mistakes and stuff. And people would still be like, wow, you made this mistake and stuff. And I'd be like,
Exactly.
well, yeah, I literally edited it so the camera spun and zoomed in and had text.
And they don't get it, do they?
Yeah, and I was like, and we're called TCG Scrubs. Obviously, people won't take that into account anymore. We have to actually be good or halfway decent now. But
Right.
that game of Fox and Charlotte we had done it before, and we did so many mistakes, we scrapped it. And the one that people are crapping on us for so many mistakes was the better version of the two. So we realized people like the gameplay we do for some reason, but we realized it's not our strong suit.
And same here. We've experimented with that, and we're gonna dip our toe back in with a different angle on the gameplay videos. But
Oh yeah.
Colin, let me ask you, as a fellow member of a content creation duo, that's always the big fucking struggle, is what do people want? Like, how do you chase people's desires? So on the one hand, you can do what will work, and I'm not gonna name names, but you can do what certain YouTubers do and keep things like I want to say lowest common denominator, so just like the clean, dry,
That's pretty much what it is.
formulaic stuff, or you can start to move towards the end where, like, an interview like the one we're having right now is not structured. It's not formulaic. Anything could happen.
Yeah.
A podcast is the same way. And even within, that dichotomy of being like really hard and tight with the formula, or being really loose and personable about it, even within that dichotomy, there's different, it diverges in different ways. So like in a podcast, which anything can happen, you can choose to edit things in or out.
Right.
Like you're talking about with your gameplay videos, putting poop emojis in, which I think is brilliant. Like, some people are still going to get pissed off about that. So it's like, what level of creativity are you going to allow yourself? Like, how do you guys approach what people want and what you want? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to balance both, but it never ends up being the same.
Yeah, no, and I think what we've ended up doing at the end of the day, and if, for the, probably like 20 or so people that have followed us since the beginning, we just sort of did a thing of where, like, we've listened to what some people say for some stuff where that isn't necessarily related to videos, like launching our website. That's not something we originally had thought of doing, but people kept asking for article versions of, like, the Force of Will News was the main one, and a couple requests for deck list article versions. So we're like, all right, we can either like just do Facebook posts, or we can launch a website and do this. And we got kind of lucky in how we were able to do that and stuff. And so there's that, but most of the time it's just like, hey, let's have this idea, let's do it. Like, that's what we did with the podcast. The news was like, Oscar and I would always, not always, but once in a while listen to the Q&As, but we're like, occasionally we'd be like, oh, we don't have enough time for it and stuff like that. So I was like, man, it'd be nice if like someone like did listen to it and just did like a summary of it. And I was like, well, why don't we do that? That seems like something people would want. And so that's how the news came about. And then Jordan stopped doing Q&A, so that's cool, But
So, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
yeah, but and that's what, like, the lore videos was Oscar being like, I really like, he really liked the lore videos that, I think, was it Negative Legend did those?
Yeah, Negative Legend did that.
He liked those, but he wanted to do something like that because Negative Legend had stopped doing them at some point. And so I was like, well, what if we did it, because I don't want to just do a carbon copy, so what if we did that, but put an unnecessary amount of effort into it and actually got different people doing voice and all that stuff. So there's that, and then what's the other stuff we do? I forget. We have like we're always like coming up with different random ideas that take us longer than it should to actually make happen. But I think at this point, yeah, we're just sort of like, if we have something that sounds interesting, we'll throw it at the wall and see if it sticks, type of a deal, like with Joey doing the Eternal card game videos just on the side and stuff like that.
Right. I think that's the right approach, is because like beforehand, no matter how good of an idea you think you have, it typically ends up not being that way, especially right out of the gate. And then you never know what the audience is going to be receptive to. I'm sure you guys have many instances in which you put no thought into something and didn't even think it was going to be popular with your audience, and then all of a sudden that's the next thing they want all the time.
But that's halfway what happened with the first Force of Will news. Like, I put a decent amount of effort to it, but like, you know, I was like, I'll see if this sticks, and then it ended up being like, well, not the most viewed thing, but like way higher than our average views. And I was like, oh man, this, and then I did it again, and it was the same thing next week, and it was sort of those things where I found out, oh, this was something people have been wanting this whole time, just no one like vocally expressed it. So you just had to sort of keep doing stuff till you found it.
Right.
But I'm sure you guys run into that stuff a lot more of figuring, or not necessarily figuring out what people want, but finding stuff that
well, I mean,
people,
like, for example, the podcast we were doing every week was about, I mean, it was 3 hours of work to shoot it, essentially, and then it came down to maybe another, I mean, I would edit it for about 3 hours, and I mean, I get really overly tedious, what it sounds like you do as well when it comes to editing audio, and trying to make it sound, you know, when you sacrifice production quality, people seem to really not give a shit anyway. But I really went for the highest production quality my equipment would allow. And at the end of the day, it ended up being, what, like 10 hours out of our week to do this thing that nobody liked. But then I'll get hammered and turn my webcam on, and people eat that shit up. So like that, and it's something that you can't predict.
Also available on Patreon. You can patreon.com/jruler, where you can get us drunk in front of the camera.
But I think that's what makes us the angriest, or at least me the angriest, is I love the podcast more than anything we do.
Yeah.
And people hate it the most. Like,
well,
people, like,
I think
people love to hate it.
Yeah, I think people love to hate it, and it's the thing that we're probably known the best for, one way or another.
But then why does nobody fucking listen to it?
I mean, they do, but it's not a, I mean, it's a small community.
Right.
Overall, but, I mean, you gotta realize that. I mean, you guys knew that going in.
Yeah, no, there's at least at this point in time, there's a cap, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, do you guys, like, maybe have the same aspiration that we did? You want to grow with the game, and if the game does make it to, you know, the number 3, 4, it's like number 2 card game, you're there with it, you know?
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things when we started the channel, though, that we took into account, because the original idea, because this was all Oscar's idea, he had come up with the idea of, and the name for it was Force of Will Scrubs. And then I suggested changing it to TCG Scrubs, both because I felt it was a nicer name, but it also left room for us to have the potential to grow in case Force of Will does cap off. If we throw up like Joey's Eternal card game, that, you know, it fits inside the channel. Like most of our subscribers will, you know, ignore it because it's not their thing. But it's something that we have, like, we feel like we have freedom to do. Whereas like Deepwood, not that he couldn't, but like the name itself, like, sort of feels slightly constrictive to Force of Will.
We did the same thing. I mean, we slammed our dick right down on the griddle and just said, well, we'll see if it burns, and if it doesn't, then
on to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you listen to our Patreon content again.
Yeah.
So you know.
This really sounded bad.
You know, well, you got to promote, man. You know that we've been exploring the same thing, like the possibility of expanding our repertoire, and you guys did it right. I mean, just something as simple as the name allows you to expand infinitely.
Yeah, I felt kind of stupid now, though.
Yeah, I mean, we are stupid. Have we ever said that we were anything other than two schmucks talking about a game we barely understand? No. I don't think so.
Well, at least I feel like JRuler, like the title itself, though, like, yeah, it's related to Force of Will, but I feel like it's like such an interesting title that it could easily, like, foray itself into like if you decided to do, especially easy to do stuff like casters and architects is the obvious ones. Like if you ever want to do that, it's an easy transition because it's all under the umbrella, and I'm sure they'll.
Well, it's not gonna be an easy transition because I can't afford more trading card games.
Hey, it's someone's making it for Lackey, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
That's because that's something Oscar and I talked about. Where it's like, should we because we're kind of interested in trying casters and architects just for fun, but we also literally have the same thing of neither of us want to spend money on either of them. So odds are we'll just we'll wait for it to get on Lackey, and we'll just do a pure Lackey on casters and architects. Which did you happen to look at casters, the cards that were spoiled?
No, I didn't. Where can you see those? I didn't see that.
A company created the database that has all the cards on it now.
Oh,
and
I haven't been paying attention.
The themes are pretty interesting. So the colors, so it has 7 colors or whatever, and so like there's the obvious ones. I think green is like plants and stuff, and black is creatures. I probably don't have this right, but like one of the colors, blue, is office supplies. So there's like a stapler with like a mouth on it and stuff like that. It's all office supplies, scissors, you name it. No. One of them is makeup, so it's like makeup brushes and all that different stuff. And another one is food-related stuff. Which there's a really weird picture of like 3 pigs inside of like a pig meat like outer layer. I don't know.
I really don't like this.
Are we getting hosed? Did you bring us on to host us?
It's the weirdest thing ever. I was like, it totally threw me off guard when Oscar told me. I was like, that's funny. He was like, no, it's office supplies. One of them's office supplies. I was like,
that's the best one.
Yeah, because we both worked at Office Max, so it's one of those things where it's like, well, if we end up playing that, then one of us has to do that deck. It's obligatory, but yeah, I'm super weirded out about it right now, though.
That's too Japanese for me. I don't know if I can get into that.
That's the limit. Yeah.
Sacred Beats, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, how big are the tits on these staplers?
They're pretty small on some. They're definitely going for the lowly crowd.
Hold on, I gotta look at this.
They're going for the questionable age group, is from at least some of them.
Yeah. Right.
See, they kind of piloted that with some Force of Will cards, so I guess their market research proved positive on that, so they're gonna go ahead and make a game for that segment of the audience. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's taking a lot of stuff. It has some of the characters from Force of Will are going to be in it. I think it has a carbon copy of was it Morgiana, where you draw 3 cards and put 2 at the bottom of your deck every time you draw a card, stuff like that. So and it has the break function that Force of Will originally had. So it sounds like they're like throwing a bunch of stuff into it. Yeah,
Yeah, we're looking at it now. The cards.
The card art is really wonky.
It's a bit odd.
Yeah, it's sort of hit and miss on some of them. I hate how it's like pictures of stuff and then a blank background.
It's really
It looks like the Dragon Ball Super card game, actually. The kind of the design elements that we're looking at. Talk about dog shit card games. It's definitely. I used to play the old one from Score. I think it was called Dragon Ball Z custom or collectible card game, and that one was cool. But this newest iteration is just not.
Are they all little girls?
Yes, I believe it's in a high school. There's some sort of wording that made me think it was a high school or some other trope that I don't remember.
Anyway, put your phone down, man. You well,
there's 2 of us here.
You have.
Here we go.
Oh boy. I'll be right over. This card is called Rest Target Enemy Servant. I like where this game is going. I think.
Oh yeah, they're all servants. Yeah, like melty ice cream is one of them. It's an ice cream that looks like it's about to eat some other ice cream, I think.
Wow, dude, this is really weird. It's every weeb fetish put into one TCG, like.
Yeah, it looks like they either put very little effort or like an unneeded amount of effort. Like it could go either way.
I think they know exactly what they're doing, and that's the scary part. Like they know exactly who they're selling this game to. Like.
Yeah, essentially, it seems like they're trying to fill the Cardfight Vanguard hole by like instead of
Yeah,
making
I
walls
heard
of text, they're doing
Yeah.
more pictures.
Yeah, I heard Vanguard's having trouble.
Well, it had trouble from the get-go because it was a poorly designed game based on a shitty TV show. So, I mean, what do you expect? Oh no, wait, we have Yu-Gi-Oh still, so that's really can't make the argument for that.
Well, Vanguard didn't have motorcycles.
That's true.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh was interesting. I played Yu-Gi-Oh, but we played pre-5Ds. We refused to play anything post that, so...
Same here.
That's probably where you should stay.
Yeah. I mean, it still had, whatever Dark Storm or whatever that destroys everything. But, what are you going to do?
But that's the mistake they're going to make with Caster is Force of Will at least has a nice balance of questionably aged women that are maybe appropriately dressed, and then definitely old enough women with oversized body proportions that are very appropriately uncovered. Like that's really where you need to strike the balance when you're hitting the weeb audience. Because if I've got nothing to look at, like if I have to sit there and like wonder if I'm like going to be like arrested looking at this game, that's not a good place to be. I need to be in the I need big old titties flopping around. I need them barely covered. I need to know that they're going to be old enough for me.
See, Casters is like earlier Force of Will after their attorneys have advised them to not get sued in America. Like it's a game. Casters is a trading card game that was formulated by lawyers. Like that's
it's like we want to make as much money off of this as possible.
Absolutely.
It's just we just need like some sort of flavor text that confirms they're at least in their senior year of high school, just to make sure we're in the clear.
Just to be safe.
Yeah, because a senior in high school in Japan is what, 15?
Oh, shoot. I promise I didn't know that. I promise.
No, they're about 17 in their senior year of high school.
Well, who cares? Why are you telling me?
It's important. You got to be able to spot the difference. That's what gets you out of trouble.
I've never been in a compromising situation involving a possible minor.
And neither have I. Next question.
Before I forget, I'll real quick do the Oscar questions. If any of the questions I had asked previously were questionable, those is because they were Oscar questions. So Oscar wanted to ask real quick. He said, my only question was, where did you guys meet and what got you guys started?
I think the two of those are intertwined into the same story. Colin, did you say you guys worked together? You and Oscar?
Yeah. We met several years ago.
Yeah, we also met at work, interestingly, and from there, just getting to know each other through, hellos and goodbyes, and it became apparent to both of us that we shared a similar hobby in tabletop gaming, and we had played many of the same games, and I had just recently gotten into Force Will. This was 2 years ago, and I said, hey man, I know you like anime and card games and stuff, like check this game out. So, I showed him the cards, he thought it was cool. He said he'd think about maybe, building a deck or getting into it. And I think maybe 2 or 3 days later, I said, so, man, you want to come over to the game store and play some Force Will? He's like, yeah, I got 3 boxes in the mail.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because when I get hooked onto something, I really just, sink into it very quickly. And especially having come off of Yu-Gi-Oh! I wasn't playing it at all anymore and kind of had that trading card game hole. And So, he points out the game, and I'm like, okay. So I go home, and I'm looking it up. I'm like, well, this is happening. So, here I go, Amazon. And then, I just basically picked up a Moonlit Savior box, a Twilight Wanderer box, and all of the
starter decks.
All the starter decks.
Yeah, this is back when those were the newest cards.
And in pretty much one go, and then everything showed up, and I just, tried to learn it as quickly as possible. But yeah, that was pretty much it. It was just sort of the slow development to the understanding that we had pretty much come to the same conclusion about not only trading card games, but how to go about them, and sort of a similar opinion on how to play, really.
Right, and then the idea struck us that since we're friends and we play the same game, and we were going to start a Force of Will podcast together, that we would also get married. But it became apparent that bigamy is illegal in the state in which we live, since I was already married, and it just wasn't a possibility. Is that your recollection also?
It pretty much went like that.
Right. Yeah, that's
because I'm already so successful when it comes to relationships that I was like, well, you know, it might be time for me to get tied down, but I had to leave myself open to other options.
Yeah, that's the answer we'll go with.
That's
our final answer for that one.
That's so my mother doesn't realize I'm so sad, lonely, and depressed, and I feel
it was out of your control.
Yeah, pretty much. It was pretty much what happened. So
that
way, it made the tax a lot easier.
Did that, and so that just sort of how'd that lead into your YouTube channel?
Well, I already had the YouTube channel going by the time that we were friends, and I was just, you know, doing kind of what everyone else did with, you know, deck lists and just talking about like a lot of the videos I took down the early ones because they're really terrible, but just kind of talking about my progress as a player in the game, and you know, it was unabashedly like, hey, I'm a new player and I don't understand things that well, so kind of relying on other people to help me in a way while also providing them videos.
Right. But in terms of the podcast, we were at our locals, and you know, that very first episode was purely just.
It was after we got back from the local game store.
I mean,
it's like everyone net decked Ninetail Fox that day, like everyone except.
So it's
Russ.
Like, hey man, like let's scoop, let's go. You know, we'll go back to my place and drink, and then just, you know, turn the microphone on. I yelled for 30 minutes, and that was pretty much it.
That was it.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed the. I like the rants. Like I enjoyed the your guys' Patreon pre podcast ranting about stuff.
Yeah, we tried to let it loose for the paying Patreons, who all of whom, 100% of whom, go to patreon.com/JRuler, and they hit that subscribe button, and they get access to all of that interesting content that Colin is sure to tell you more about.
I'm about to say, and what's the low cost of that?
The low cost of $5 American. Hey, I'm a salesman. It's what I do. Okay. Yeah, but we try to cut loose more on there.
It's pretty awesome. I enjoy that type of stuff. We're still working out the kinks on our shameless plug of Patreon also, but
so just do it.
You just gotta say it.
No, I do generally, because it feels good because you get the extra podcast and all that stuff, so it feels justified. But I'm still I was going somewhere with that. Oh bother! Now I forget. This happens a lot. This is probably why we wouldn't do that great of a podcast when we eventually try to get.
You just gotta wing it. You got another question from Oscar? Let's go.
I'm about to say, I cut out a lot of blank space. So. We've gotten better at actually not leaving as much blank space. I do so much less editing now. But the get-go, it was a lot of empty space and a lot of and we just I just sort of cropped those out. And then
a lot of farts that get cut out.
Yes. So eventually we just we stopped drinking so much while we did the podcast. That was a big problem. And never do that. Never ever try to drink and do a podcast. It doesn't work, despite how funny you think.
You can drink while editing because it'll be funnier that way.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Not while doing it. But you said you had another question from Oscar.
That was it. I wrapped the two questions into one there.
Oh, way to go, Oscar.
Yeah,
he didn't even need to be here.
He put in a lot of effort into that.
Yeah, go on, what do I ask?
Speaking of I don't know if you guys said this was Patreon only if it was for your channel, but I'm still waiting on the I don't know if it was going to be a roast or what of all the Takeover Week videos. I was very much looking forward to that.
Oh man, we were gonna let's tell the story about that before we immolate ourselves in a horrible flame that consumes us all.
Right.
We did record that, and the funniest goddamn thing, while we were recording it, oh dude, we will put it up on Patreon, and we spent 25 minutes of ripping on all a number of the Takeover Week videos.
Yeah, it was good, but the audio got fucked up.
And then the joke was that we ripped on people for making shitty videos, and then our video sucked. And it was we fucked the sound up, and it's like, oh goddamn. But there are some gems that we did salvage.
Well, maybe that could be a social commentary. It's like we make fun of the shitty videos as a shitty video. Can we spin it like that, you think?
We just did.
There you go.
You just did it.
Just go to patreon.com.
Oh man, I probably shouldn't monetize this video. It's one big ad already.
Try not to make it. It started out funny, but now it does. We kind of sound like pieces of shit. But
again, we've billed ourselves as nothing but those same pieces of shit.
I have that big megaphone on top of my car, like from the Blues Brothers, and I'm just driving around like spewing the Patreon constantly on blast. So that's pretty much how we do it.
Right.
But no, we ended up cutting that. I guess we're gonna cut that up into.
We have that one really funny bit, Colin, to answer your question at least partially. There is one, the funniest bit that didn't get fucked up with the audio that we'll put up on Patreon. I'll put it up tonight. It's only 10 seconds long, and I think that's the hardest you and I have ever laughed at something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably ever, because we kept laughing after that too. So I'll put that up there.
Yeah, there's some good bits in there.
Yeah,
we'll try to salvage it.
But we'll have to redo it, or we'll repost it. So
That's amazing.
I guess.
I mean, everybody fucks up, so.
Yeah. Some of us are fuck ups even.
Our internet's kind of weird sometimes.
Well, and as Beats would put it, Discord sucks.
It does.
I don't know. It could go either way. Because I've only ever used Skype and Discord, and Skype isn't the best either, so it's hard for me to pinpoint.
Yeah, but at least Skype is consistently garbage. Like Discord is so inconsistent. Like it'll be an absolute dog shit, or it'll be an okay piece of garbage, or it might be spectacular, but then immediately go back to being dog shit. So like you just don't. It's too much of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
So I don't like it. I just the
No,
interface,
it's,
the fact that everybody uses it to make fun of me, and I just don't.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, no, it's just funny seeing in your guys' Discord, just everyone's like, oh no, it's okay, we can make fun of him. He's not on Discord.
Yeah, because I don't see it.
You refuse to see it. It's not that you can't.
Right, I do it on principle. I do it on
You
principle.
won't.
Out of principle.
Right.
You got to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Dude, of all the things to gravitate towards and draw a line in the sand, of all the things to stand up for in this world and try to make your mark in life, it's not using Discord.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing
like
you
to defend
choose.
Skype. Because when I'm president, I need to be able to spy on everybody using some sort of program that they download onto their phone for free or their computer, and that's what Skype is. I love the government watching me all the time. I love the prying eyes of Donald Trump in my home, watching me, watch all my favorite videos on all of my my websites.
Which you can also watch on patreon.com/JRuler as Sacred Beats drinks and watch K-pop videos.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, how
I feel like the title for this video should be like interview with patreon.com/JRuler.
and then please put like a registered trademark after that, like in the title.
We will come after you.
Thanks for we've been trying to. I know the people listening to this don't know this, but we've been trying to get this together for some time, and it just usually I'm free like every weekend, and then the one weekend that you guys were free was like the one weekend I wasn't, and
Exactly.
So it's been a whole thing. So hopefully this is people enjoy this. I'd love to do it, like I said, again sometime, or something for your channel.
Yeah, we've already made a commitment to bring you guys on the show, and like you're just saying, twice we tried to coordinate you guys getting on our show, and you have to coordinate 4 schedules.
Yeah, it's rough.
And it never works out. Like it's so absurd. But we will have you guys on the Rolling the Beats if you guys are on to coming on.
Oh yeah, no, that'll be awesome. Yeah, and if and well, you guys watching can let us know what you guys think, and anything if they come on our channel again, or if we go on there, what stuff you guys like to hear or see or anything like that. Hopefully at some point I can get onto your Pauper tournaments or something. I just did a Lackey tournament that was able, just because it was on Friday night, but just like Saturdays and Sundays are sort of a toss-up for me as far as that type of stuff. But
yeah, it's like trying to do that. Like I don't mind doing the Lackey tournaments. I've hosted several for Pauper, and it does take. I'm not trying to make everyone feel sorry for me or like I'm doing something really spectacular, but I mean it is 6 or 7 hours out of my Sunday, and that's the day that I have to do it. And I know that a lot of people are busy those days. It's we've come full circle. It's like trying to balance what you are willing and able to do, and then what everyone else expects from you. And you always, it always seems like you come short. So I'm sure, Sacred Beats, that when we go back and watch this video on TCG Scrubs channel, there's sure to be a turd or two dropped on us, which is fine, because we will have our revenge. One last time on patreon.com/Taylor, there will be a video with retaliation aplenty. See, you can't see my pantomimes, but I have a very 1920s salesman-like
way of leading into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm sure you're holding one of those little twirly things they have on the side of the road that just has patreon.com/jruler on it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's a good note to end it on. Thanks again for coming coming on, and we'll talk to you guys again in the future.
Sounds awesome. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.